We ask in your name. Amen. So today we're going to be coming from Exodus 3, and we're going to be looking at verses 1 through 12. Exodus 3, verses 1 through 12. And if you know me by now, I tell it like it is. So I went to the Message Bible version of this because we need to understand this process the way it really is. Okay? So we're in Exodus 3, 1 through 12. And it says, Moses was shepherding the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the west end of the wilderness and came to a mountain of God, Horeb. The angel of God appeared to him in flames of fire blazing out of the middle of a bush. He looked. The bush was blazing away, but it didn't burn up. Moses said, "What's going on here? I can't believe this. Amazing. Why doesn't the bush burn up?" God saw that he stopped to look. God called to him from out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." He said, "Yes, I'm right here." God said, "Don't come any closer. Remove your sandals from your feet. You are standing on holy ground." We're going to come back to that. Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, afraid to look at God. God said, "I've taken a good long look at the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries for deliverance from their slave masters. I know all about their pain. And now I have come down to help them. Pry them loose from the grip of Egypt. Get them out of that country and bring them to a good land with wide open spaces, a land lush with milk and honey, the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite." The Israelite cry for help has come to me, and I've seen for myself how cruelly they've been treated by the Egyptians. It's time for you to go back. Somebody say, "Go back."
Go back.
I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the people of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses answered, "God, but why me? What makes you think I could ever go to Pharaoh and lead the children of Israel out of Egypt? I'll be with you," God said, "and this will be the proof that I am the one who sent you. When you have brought my people out of Egypt, you will worship God right here at this very mountain." So for today's topic, I want to say, my title would be, "I've got you, now go." I've got you, now go. There's a team building exercise called a trust fall. In this exercise, you are expected to be blindfolded or turned backwards away from the person or group of people that you are working with and allow yourself to fully let yourself go and fall backwards, allowing the others to catch you. This act is supposed to demonstrate that you fully trust your team members and will solely depend on them not to drop you. I've been a part of this activity only one time in my life, when I was in college, and I was trying to become part of an organization. Now, if you know me for any point in period of time, you will know that this trust fall did not go as easily and as organized as what the people that put it together had thought. Does anybody want to guess why? If you said it's because I'm hard-headed, stubborn, too inquisitive, or flat out just didn't trust the people that I was with, you'd be right. The only problem was is that the other people that were pledging with me were counting on me to complete the task, or else we all ran the risk of being dropped. Somebody say somebody else is dependent on you. Now, I'll skip to the end of the story to let you know that eventually I completed the task. But it wasn't without being afraid. Starting and stopping, and starting and stopping again. And asking a whole lot of what if questions. And giving a whole lot of what this and that situation. It wasn't until I heard my one friend in the crowd say, don't think about them, I got you, that I was able to lock onto his voice and take the plunge. So when we look at the story of Moses bringing the children of Israel out of Egypt, many people only think about the end of the story. They think about Moses standing up to Pharaoh and with his staff in his hand and saying, let my people go. And God allows the children of Israel to cross the Red Sea. And then he brings the sea down and all the army of Pharaoh gets swallowed up into the sea. And the children of Israel are victorious and they get to the other side. That's the part that we talk about. But this is one of those familiar Bible stories where God uses an average person to do an extraordinary thing. But we need to go back to the beginning of the story and look at the events that led up to this extraordinary act. Because our boy Moses was just like you and me. This story begins in Exodus 1 through 5, and it talks about the burning bush. And we've already read the scripture, so I'm going to paraphrase. Now, y'all already know me, so I paraphrase it in the way that God gave it to me, so trust me, I promise I'm going to push it. Okay. So our boy Moses was minding his own business, right? And he was tending to his father-in-law's flock when he came up on a mountain called Horeb, and it was called the Mountain of God. Now, if you come up on a place called the Mountain of God, you just expect something extraordinary to happen. So, an angel of God appears to Moses in a burning bush. Nobody set it on fire. The bush was just burning on its own, but it was not being consumed by the fire that was burning. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you was on fire, but for some reason you weren't being consumed by the fire? You were just in heat, like it was getting hot, but it really wasn't affecting you when you actually stopped to think about what was going on. I can think about the 3 Hebrew boys. They were consumed, they were in the fire, but they weren't consumed by the fire. So God will always let you know when it's him speaking to you. The way he presents himself to you will always be like nothing else that you've ever experienced. There are times in life when God will send complete strangers to you to prophesy a word through a random conversation. That was one time in 1 week where God sent 7 people, random people, to me at my job and had a message for me in their own words. But can you think why he had to send 7 people? If you said I'm hard-headed, stubborn, too inquisitive, or flat out don't trust people easily, you will be right. So Moses gets curious, and he sees this burning bush, and it's like, what's going on here? I ain't never seen no bush on fire, but it ain't burning up. Like, that's me, literally. So when God saw that the bush got Moses' attention, he called his name. What has God had to do to get your attention? For some of us, it's easy because we aren't stubborn and we aren't too smart for our own good. But for y'all that's like me, God has to set a perfectly fine bush on fire in the middle of nowhere and call my name in order to get my attention. He has to set some things on fire in my life in order for me to know that it's him. He has to put me in some uncomfortable situations in order for me to move. At one moment, the marriage is going fine and perfect, then boom, something happens. At one moment, the job is a breeze and nobody's bothering you because you're the top employee. And then, well, you're not the rock star no more. Or you got stacks and stacks of money and you just throwing it in the bag, and then, boom, major financial shift. So what has God had to do to get your attention? Moses hears his name being called, and he answers to God, and he says, yep, it's me, what's up? You looking for me? Here I go. That's God says, okay, cool, but check this out. Don't come no closer. Matter of fact, take your shoes off, because you're standing on holy ground. When God has called you for a special purpose and he's about to do a major thing in your life that will affect the lives of other people, he is ordaining you to be a ground shifter. Come on. ground is shifting. Now, when you're about to step into the will of God and what he has for your life, you can't walk into that situation the same as what you were before you were ordained. God has Moses take his shoes off because he's about to step on holy ground into his purpose in that moment. Moses would never just be a normal shepherd of animals anymore. He is about to be a shepherd of God's people. So I need y'all to help me out. The next couple of situations that I'm going to talk about, if you've ever found yourself in that situation, I want you to stand up. Okay? Have you ever had a moment in your life where God has isolated you and you couldn't figure out why? Has God ever put you in a space where you couldn't commune with the same types of people and do the same types of things that you've always done? Have you ever had a moment where you thought you were crazy because God was speaking to you and telling you things that nobody else could hear?
No.
Have you ever had a situation of unexplained favor? Have you been counted out, but you're still here? So if you've been in any of these situations and you're a person that's standing, what I'm here to tell you is you're a ground shifter. So my question is today, do I have any ground shifters in the building? See, stay standing. When you have been ordained to shift the ground, you are changing the very structure and foundation of what people's lives are built on and forcing them to adjust to God's plan being fulfilled through you.
That's good.
So my final question is, how many people need to take their shoes off?
Amen.
But don't be so quick to take your shoes off, because when you do, you are acknowledging that you hear God and that you're accepting the calling of being a ground shifter. You can be leading. So I'm going to get back to the story. So God introduces himself to Moses and he tells him his plan. And he tells him in verse 6 through 10 of this scripture what his plan actually is. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face, afraid to look at God. God says, I have taken a long look at the affliction of my people in Egypt. I've heard their cries for deliverance from their slave masters. I know all about their pain. And now I have come down to help them, pry them loose from the grip of Egypt, get them out of their country, and bring them to a land of wide open spaces and a land lush with milk and honey. So that he told Moses what the plan was. But God, being who he is, knows what his children need and acknowledges that he's heard their cries and he's heard their pain and what they're going through. So when you don't think God is listening, he is. When you feel like you're all alone in a situation that seems endless, having a personal connection with God is the answer. And you have to trust and believe that he's already making a way out of the situation. What you have to understand is that your Moses is coming. But more importantly, for the unknown ground shifters in the room and online, you may be the Moses for somebody else. So that's why it's imperative that when God sends you instructions for what he needs you to do, you must act on it, even in fear, even without fully knowing how and why you're there. Because God is always telling you, don't worry about the others. I got you. Just trust me. The other thing you have to understand is that God will sometimes send you back to the very place that he brought you out of in order to do an extraordinary thing. I remember talking to my brother Pookie one Sunday, and he was like, the boys in the hood don't understand why I'm the way I am now. That's because you were ground shifter. God put you through what he put you through in order for you to go back and be an example of this. You're not supposed to be like everybody else. You're supposed to be what God ordained you to be, because he needs you to go back to where you came from and shift the ground. And when you shift the ground, he's telling you you're going to bring some more people back with you that in turn want to Because when God sends you on assignment, he will give you revelation. In some cases, he reveals the steps as you go. But sometimes he will reveal the what, the who, the when, the where, the why, and the how, because he knows who you are. And Moses needed all the details. Yes. Because he found a lot like me. Amen. Because I want to know what me too. Okay. Moses doubted that the people would know who God was. So he asked in verse 13 and 14, then Moses said to God, suppose I go to the people of Israel and I tell them, the God of your father sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? And what do I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. Tell the people of Israel, I am sent me to you. So God confirmed and told Moses exactly what it was that he needed to say. But Moses, like me, and he got a whole lot of wooden questions. So Moses said, okay, I'm telling him. But what if the people don't trust him? So God gives Moses 3 signs or miracles to show the people to prove to them, but he had to prove it to Moses first. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew what God was going to be able to do, but because you didn't trust yourself, you didn't think you were worthy enough to be able to do what God has told you about? Did I not just share my story about being fearful of success? God ordained me a long time ago to do what it was that he had and be a ground shifter. But because I didn't trust me, because I didn't believe in me, I sat down on the gift that God gave me. Because it wasn't because I didn't think God wasn't big enough or God wasn't telling me exactly what it is that I needed to do. It was because of me. So that's why I say that Moses is like me. Pastor BJ said during Bible study one day that miracles are not for followers. Miracles are not for believers. We believe by faith. But the people needed to see the miracle to believe Moses. Moses didn't necessarily struggle in believing God. He didn't believe in himself. So God had to show him the power that he was putting inside of him. And I can remember many, many times of being like Moses. And God said, go over here and do this. And I'm like, nah, Lord, I'm going to go over here. Or, you sure I need to go over there? Or, I already got something else going on. They can be all right. They're going to be good. It's other singers that's going to be there. It's other ministers that's going to be there. They don't need little old me. I can remember telling God these exact same things. But because I didn't go, God had to find somebody else to use for that person to get their breakthrough. Or to make them wait to the next opportunity. So how many times have you been sitting in the church house waiting on God to do something for you when your blessing could have been connected to the person that he told to move? And because they didn't move, now you have to wait even longer for your breakthrough. Or God has to go tap somebody else on the shoulder in order to deliver what you were charged with doing. Somebody say, Lord, don't make me the reason that somebody else don't get their breakthrough. Somebody say, somebody is dependent on me. So even after all of that, God gives Moses 3 signs, and he's like, hey, don't show the people this, and they don't believe you. Once they see this, they don't believe you. So then Moses was like, okay, God, I got you. We know who you are. You gave me these signs and wonders for the people. But I don't speak well enough to lead the people.
That's what he said.
He said, I don't speak well enough. And so at this point, God is like, okay, what other excuse do you have? You got a brother. His name Aaron. Aaron speaks well. He's very eloquent. And guess what? I'm going to send Aaron with you because he speaks well. And Aaron is going to speak, but the words are going to come from you. You're going to decide what it is that you tell people. But I'm going to connect you with somebody that's able to do what you're saying that you're lacking in doing. So either Moses was clearly working God's nerves because God just continued to reassure Moses that he was with him every step of the way and he needed to go and do his assignment. When God sends you on assignment, he will allow you to connect with others that have also been called. There are other ground shifters and other witnesses that can support you on your journey. God connected Moses with the elders and leaders of Israel and his brother Aaron to continue to fulfill his plan. I met my pastors in 2017. And when I met them, I had no clue that our lives were going to be connected and manifested in the way that it is now. At that time, I didn't know that God was even going to take us through some of the same hellish situations and circumstances to get us to this point. And what people don't understand is they don't understand what we collectively went through. We talk about the short story, we share tidbits and different things, but when you've been through hell with somebody, you have an eternal connection to them. Now, when I met them, I hadn't even stepped into my full walk of being a worship leader. I was in the back, singing back up, cheering like Moses, in the field, tending to the sheep, minding my business, standing out everybody else's way. That's what I was doing. And if I had known at the time what I know now, I probably wouldn't even said hey to them. Because in that introduction, God activated the connection that we had together. And God has been allowing us to walk this journey together and be able to connect and be able to minister. So the reason why I'm standing here right now is actually their activation. Yeah. When God sends you on assignment, he will always provide for you.
Yes, he will.
In Exodus 3:21 and 22, it says, in Exodus 3:21 through 22, it says, I'll see to it that his people get a hearty send-off by the Egyptians when you leave. You won't leave in empty-handed. Each woman will ask her neighbor and any guest in her house for the objects of silver and gold, for jewelry and extra clothes. You'll put them on your sons and daughters. Oh, you'll clean out the Egyptians. He said that you're going to get all this fancy stuff from the Egyptians. You ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm going to provide it to you. I'm telling you where you're going to get it from. I'm telling you what you need to go say to the people, and I'm telling you what to do with it. But when you get it, don't put it on yourself. Put it on your children.
Yeah.
And so when God sends you on assignment, he's going to bless generations and generations and generations to come. See, what you don't understand about walking in the assignment that God has given you is that your assignment is attached to the blessings of other people. So when I gave my full yes at the beginning of this year and said, okay, God, I never said that I was going to ever take a test, but because you're telling me to do it, I'm going to do it. My family is being made whole. My brother said he was going to be the special one. I'm sorry, brother, to tell you. So, I had to be able to walk into my assignment in order for my family to be made whole, for me to rekindle the relationship that I got 10 years ago with my brother, in order for me to take my biological father out to eat and say, you know what, even though you weren't in my life for an entire 27 years, I forgive you for not being there. But that wasn't going to come to what I will tell you, I'll give you again. I tried 10 years ago. I tried 10 years ago, but I wasn't ready. And you know why I wasn't ready? Because I hadn't stepped into my assignment. I was still giving God excuses, saying, God, they not going to know who I am and who sent me. God, they not going to trust me when I get there. God, I don't speak eloquently enough in order for them to believe what it is that you're telling me to tell them. So when God sends you on assignment, he will always provide for you. But do know that provision is for generations and generations and generations to come. When God sends you on an assignment, he will move heaven and earth to protect you from all danger. This doesn't mean that the danger won't present itself or that you may not be placed in a dark situation. It means that no matter what happens, the danger will not consume you. It may sting, but it won't kill you. It's just like the burning bush. You'll be around fire. You may even be in the fire, but the fire isn't going to harm So when God puts you on assignment, he's going to protect you. How many people have been brought out of dangerous situations and still can't figure out what happened?
Yeah.
How many of you have been in a terminal got a terminal diagnosis and now it's gone?
Come on.
How many have been near death but are sitting right here right now,
Come on.
being a blessing and watching this message today in this building our whole lives? And that's only because of what God has done for you. That's only because God will provide and protect you in the situation as you're walking in your assignment. God will not leave you if he sent you. As God guided Moses through his journey, he told him of the dangers that he would face before he faced them. He also told him exactly how Pharaoh was going to respond and what he should do after each of Pharaoh's actions. God won't send you where he cannot protect you.
That's good.
So in Exodus 7, 1 through 7, God releases 10 plagues on Egypt because Pharaoh wouldn't comply with his request. He turned the Nile River into blood, which means he killed the fish and there was no drinking water. He put frogs everywhere. Lice. We're not going to talk about lice. We're just not going to talk about lice. He had wild animals and flies that attacked the Egyptians only. Now we know in Houston how disrespectful these mosquitoes are.
Oh my God.
But can you please tell me how a fly or a wild animal be like, now you a child of Israel, I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to pick on somebody that's an Egyptian. That's only God, because we know the disrespectful ants and mosquitoes and flies, they don't have no respect for person, they're just disrespectful. But think about a time when God puts his hand on a situation and say, no, don't touch them, touch him. He put a pestilence of livestock, and all that means is that all the animals got extremely sick. And what God was doing was killing off the Egyptian food source. Boils. I don't have to explain boils. He had thunderstorms of hail and fire, locusts. There was darkness for 3 days, and then he called upon the death of the firstborn, of human and of animal. So if you're a child of God and he sends you on assignment, go, because God has your back. In each one of those situations, the children of Israel were never harmed. It was only the Egyptians. When God sends you on assignment, he will deliver you. In Exodus 14, 22 through 31, it talks about how the whole rest of the story about how the children of Israel were able to cross the Red Sea and all that stuff we talked about. The part of the story, the king of Egypt, the story y'all saw, all of that. It talks about all at the end. When you receive your deliverance, make sure that you worship and praise God in his favor over your life. Celebrate his goodness, but remember his works, because your assignment may not be done. The children of Israel were joyful for their deliverance and worshiped God. But as soon as they got in the wilderness after being delivered, they forgot what they had been brought up out of. They cried to be back in the very place they had been delivered from. The reason why is because it was the fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown will make you want to run back to something that's coming. Doubting your God-given abilities and your God-given gifts will make you want to run back to something that's familiar. But when God takes you to new levels, you will have new trials. Be sure not to slip back into old ways because they are familiar or because they're comfortable. When God sends you on assignment, you will become stronger and bolder in him as you go further into what he's asked you to do. There were 2 things that I recognized from studying this. God is always confident and has no problem telling the people who he is. He said, tell them I am who I am. gave all the excuses because he doubted himself. He pointed out all the flaws because he didn't think he was worthy. But by the time the children of Israel had been in the wilderness for so long, God kept providing for them. Moses was able to tell the people, it's not me you complaining to, it's God. God hears all of your cries. So you better remember who delivered you. Moses became bold in the Lord because after all that he had been through, God never left his side. So finally, when God elevates you, recognize the test and be able to conquer them. Never forget what God has brought you from. He called you for such a time as this. So when you're called to an assignment, get up on that cliff. Turn your back to every distraction. Listen to God's voice saying, don't worry about them. I got you. And go. Nations are counting on you to take the plunge. So trust God and fall into his will.
I want you to do me a favor. We're resting on our feet. We're resting on our feet. I want you to do me a favor really, really quickly. I want you to grab the hand of somebody that's close to you. I know we're practicing social distancing, but get with somebody. Get with somebody.